Welcome to British Biomedicine Institute. Today I, Dr. Pramod Khatri, Medical Director of British Biomedicine Clinical Trial, is going to teach you a simple topic named as FDA Post-Marketing Drug Safety Surveillance. So the outline here are that I will be providing you a pharmacovigilance background. There will be a information related to post-marketing surveillance, spontaneous adverse event reports and FAERS, FAERS, FDA Adverse Event Reporting System. I will also discuss signal detection, and I will also discuss component of good case report and case series development and evaluation. So the basic definition of pharmacovigilance is basically it is a science and activity which is related to detection, assessment, understanding and prevention of adverse effect or any other drug related problems. As per the 21 CFR 314.80, the adverse drug reactions can be defined as undesirable event which is associated with the use of a drug in human beings, whether or not considered drug related, and it can include occurring in the course of a use of a drug product in professional practice. There can be a drug overdose, there can be a drug abuse, and drug withdrawal symptoms can also come. And if there is any failure of expected pharmacologic action, again it can lead to adverse drug reaction. So FDA has made various departments like your CFSAN, whose full form is Center for Food Safety and Applied Nutrition, CVM, Center for Veterinary Medicine, CDRH, Center for Device and Radiological Health, CBER, Center for Biological Evaluation and Research, CDER, Center for Drug Evaluation and Research, CTP, Center for Tobacco Products, and ORA, Office of Regulatory Affairs. So under the Office of Surveillance and Epidemiology, basically there are two main offices named as Office of Pharmacovigilance and Epidemiology, and the another one is Office of Medication Error Prevention and Risk Management, whereas your Office of Pharmacovigilance and Epidemiology is again divided into two divisions, like your Division of Pharmacovigilance 1 and 2, also known as DPV1 or 2, whereas Office of Medication Error Prevention and Risk Management is again redivided into two divisions named as DMEPA or DRISK. Whereas the full form of DMEPA is Division of Medication Error Prevention and Analysis, whereas for DRISK the full form is Division of Risk Management. So under the Division of Pharmacovigilance, basically it helps in evaluation of safety of a medicine and therapeutic biological products. It can also analyze safety signals, and basically they also recommend regulatory actions to be taken, and they basically communicate relevant safety information. So basically they will be moving in a sequence: evaluation, analyze, action and communicate. So under your post-marketing surveillance, basically there will be a safety in the life cycle for FDA regulated products, where strategies and actions will be used to minimize the risk on the participating patients, because in the hierarchy from preclinical studies, we can say animal models, information will move. If it is okay, then it will move to phase 1, where healthy volunteers will be participating. Again we will cross check for safety and dosage, whereas in phase 2 our main objective will be to check safety and efficacy, whereas for phase 3 our objective again remains same, safety and efficacy, but here we will be phase 3 is also known as confirmatory trials, where we confirm that our medicine is much better than the medicine which is available over the counter. And at the phase 4, also known as post-marketing, basically we generally check for safety surveillance, or we want to identify the unknown or unidentified or unlabeled side effects. So the main limitation of pre-approval clinical trials is that basically the trial population has a limited size, where we can compare with trial populations versus untreated populations, and they can also have a narrow strategy for patients recruitment. We can recruit very young or very old, or we will not be recruiting children or pregnant ladies or prisoners. And there can also be a limitation in the factor related to the comorbidities. Basically, we have to exclude in our inclusion or exclusion criteria about the patients who are suffering from hepatic or renal failure. Other serious medical conditions, they are excluded, and if a patient is using a concomitant medications, then again they are refused to participate inside a clinical trial. And based upon the indication of a use, we can propose patients at complex disease are often not enrolled or they do not participate. Whereas inside the duration of a trial, basically there will be a typical chronic use in the form of years versus trial, and trial usually lasts for several weeks to the months. So under your safety monitoring during the post-approval phase of a drug product life cycle, basically these have less frequent adverse drug reactions, ADE. Patients with higher risk for ADE are unknown. There can be a chronic and long-term use. There can be drug-drug interaction. There can be drug-food interaction, and we can expect ADE, which can increase in the severity or in the frequency. And there can also be the chances of misuse or abuse of a drug product. And due to medication error, like your packaging error, your labeling or other characteristics, they can again increase the identification of adverse events. Under your type of post-marketing adverse event data, basically there will be a spontaneous or voluntary reporting of cases, like your national at FDA we can use MedWatch, whereas for local or regional, basically we can use joint commission requirements. They can be the and then we can also use scientific literature publications. And under your post-marketing studies, either voluntary or it is necessary, then we can conduct your observational studies including automated healthcare databases, and we can also implement or we can use randomized clinical trials, and we can go for active surveillance. Basically there can be a DILIN, drug induced liver injury network, or we can also use a sentinel initiative. So under your post-marketing adverse event reporting and MedWatch, basically we will be getting clinical data from patients, caregivers and healthcare professionals. They all are volunteers, and the information can go to the manufacturer MedWatch, FDA MedWatch, and under voluntary some information can go to the manufacturer also, which will be processed to the FDA, and mostly manufacturers in 95% of cases they report the adverse events which are ongoing, whereas only 5% they are reported by the direct to the MedWatch. So under your post-marketing safety reporting requirements, basically under your 21 CFR 314.80 post-marketing safety reports must be submitted to the agency for the following: 15 days alert report, either serious or unexpected adverse experience from all the sources, either it is domestic or foreign. And for PSUR, domestic spontaneous adverse events that are serious or expected, non-serious and unexpected, non-serious but expected, and quarterly for first 3 years, then annually. So the results of serious adverse event can lead to death. It can be life-threatening. It can cause or lead to inpatient hospitalization, either new or prolonged. There can be a persistent significant disability or incapacity. There can be a congenital birth defect, other serious based upon appropriate medication judgments. They may jeopardize the patients and require intervention to prevent severe outcome. So under your spontaneous reports, basically it is a communication from an individual like your healthcare professionals, your consumer, your nurse, your doctor, to a company or to a regulatory authority. And they also describe suspected adverse events. And they can also be a passive or voluntary reporting in this spontaneous reporting. The main strength of spontaneous reporting system are basically these are relatively affordable systems to monitor all the drugs. We can report even if causality is uncertain. These are less restrictive than the clinical trials because reports can be submitted for any new drug, either old or either new. Entire US population is eligible. Whereas the reports emerge from usual healthcare settings where the patients and prescriber populations may become heterogeneous. All the stages of the treated disease they are notified. There can be a long duration of use, and we can capture off-label use including diagnosis and the dose, and the comorbidities, concomitant medicines, product and procedures, they can also be reported. But the major limitations here are there is a passive or voluntary surveillance. If there is a underreporting happens, and it can vary from one drug to another, or it can take over time. And under some literature it can cite as a ratio of 1/10. Actual is unknown, so FDA doesn't assume extent. There can be a reporting bias, and the quality of report is variable and often incomplete. Duplicate reporting in some cases can occur, and no population-based data source are found. Like we cannot reliably estimate incidence or prevalence rate. There can be numerator uncertainty, denominator, which can be projected from a drug utilization data. So there are various factors which can affect the reporting, like your media attention, litigation, or we can say class action lawsuit, nature of adverse event, types of drug and indication, length of time on the market, extent and quality of manufacturer's surveillance system, prescription or over-the-counter drugs status, or reporting regulations. So under your FDA adverse event reporting system, basically these are fully automated computerized database, and we can report spontaneously, and it also contains human drugs and therapeutic biological reports. And since 1969, 18 million reports are available, and over 1.83 million new reports were submitted in 2021. So the best application for FAERS is basically the event that are linked to a specific diagnosis, event with a serious outcome that rarely occur in an untreated populations, and there can be some events with short to moderate latency period following exposure. The safety signals generation and descriptive case series, they can be used. So now comes the basic definition for the safety signals. Basically these are the reported information on possible causal relationship between adverse event and a drug, the relationship being previously unknown or incompletely documented, and basically they usually support multiple case reports. If there is a new unlabeled adverse event, then these can be identified. An observed increase in the label event or a greater severity or specificity can also help. New interactions can also help, and newly identified at-risk populations, they can also help in identification of safety signals. So the main component of good post-marketing reports are description of adverse event, suspected and concomitant product detailed, therapy details like your dose, detail of therapy. Under your patient's characteristics like your age, your sex, baseline medication conditions, comorbid conditions, family history or other risk factors can also be identified. There can be a documentation of the diagnosis. Clinical course and outcome can also be measured. Relevant therapeutic measures and laboratory data are also helpful. De-challenge and re-challenge information again beneficial. Reporter contact information is also available, and if there is any requirement of any other relevant information, then these can be identified. So evaluation of case reports, basically we have to identify adverse event which occurs at an expected time. If there is absence of symptoms prior to exposure, that can be noted. We have to identify positive de-challenge or re-challenge. It has to be consistent with pharmacological effects. It has to be consistent with non-effect in the class. And they can also support preclinical studies or clinical trials. And there can be an absence of alternative explanations in this matter. So how we report to MedWatch? So basically a performa is available in which there are various columns like your patient identifier column, event or problem column, where you have to specify which type of event, which type of symptom has come, and then you have to identify or you have to write down the suspect product information from which particular type of medicines which was consumed by the patients has lead to the signals or identification of adverse events. So even once these performa are filled, you can submit it to you can upload it to their websites, or you can also use downloaded a form, or you can send a mail, or you can fax that performa. And for any questions in the form, if you have any doubt, you can call on the toll-free number named as 1833 210 88. So if you call on this number, you will get relevant information pertaining to the MedWatch. So under the development of a case series, basically we have to identify well-documented case for FAERS. We can also use published literatures, data mining, or other sources to identify safety signals. We can also use our knowledge on clinical course of the disease. We can formulate a case definition which may include both the clinical features and laboratory findings. Sometimes even demographic information, if we believe the safety signal is for a specific population, can also be used. And if we are aware of a complete or a thorough database search for additional cases, can also be beneficial in capturing the safety signals. So under the development of a case series, basically there are three main steps. Step number 1, identify a well-documented case in FAERS. Identify a published literature also and other source that support safety signals. Under your step 2, basically you have to formulate a case definition. Whereas for the step 3, basically you have to search for additional case using FAERS like your published literatures, clinical trial adverse event data, or other databases can also be used in this case. So there are various regulatory actions which are taken whenever we identify a adverse event. So there can be warning and precautions. There can be a boxed warning, Dear HCP, healthcare professionals, and letter, PMR or PMC, enhanced pharmacovigilance, or we can use epidemiological studies. REMS can also be studied. Medicine can be withdrawn from the market, or adverse event reporting system can also be implemented to identify further unknown adverse events. So under the regulatory actions, basically we can issue warnings, precautions, and adverse reactions. The pharmacovigilance activity, basically they can enhance surveillance, like we can go for expedited reporting, registries, pharmacological studies also. Under your risk evaluation and mitigation strategy, REMS, there can be a communication plan or restricted use of a particular type of a medicine. And we can also go for DSC, drug safety communications, and if signs and symptoms again they are coming, then the medicine can be withdrawn from that particular market. So under the communication safety issue to the public and internationally, basically we can use MedWatch safety alerts. And a form is available, FDA form 1915. Basically it is a post-marketing drug and biological safety evaluation form which can be used fill the clinical information. And we can also identify the potential signal for serious risk or new safety information identified from the FAERS. We can also search for published literature and scientific meetings. There can be a video or teleconference with foreign regulatory agencies. It can be a four-way also, like your Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and Singapore. And it can also be through European Medicine Agency also. So now comes the basic acronyms which are being used in this presentation. I hope you will be able to remember those. CDER, Center for Drug Evaluation and Research. CFR, Code of Federal Regulation. DEP 1 and 2, Division of Epidemiological 1 and 2. DILIN, Drug-Induced Liver Injury Network. DMEPA, Division of Medication Error and Prevention Analysis. DPV 1 and 2, Division of Pharmacovigilance 1 and 2. DRISC, Division of Risk Management. DSC, Drug Safety Communication. EMA, European Medical Agency, Medicine Agency. FDA, Food and Drug Administration. FDAA, Food and Drug Administration Amendment Act. FAERS, FDA Adverse Event Reporting System. HCP, Healthcare Professionals. MO, Medical Officer. NDA, New Drug Application. OND, Office of New Drug. PMC, Post-Marketing Commitment. PMR, Post-Marketing Requirement. RIMS, Risk Evaluation and Mitigation Strategy. SE, Safety Evaluator. WHO UMC, World Health Organization, Upasla Monitoring Center. So I hope you have gained a lot of clinical information through this presentation. Please like, share, subscribe our YouTube channel named as British Biomedicine Institute. Good luck. Goodbye.